Chapter 9 begins with us talking to Colonel Redeps with no interference for the first time in the entire game. I wonder why, as we report to him about the loss of the Super Force medal. But just as Redeps tells us to head directly to the Rebellion Army's headquarters, we're interrupted as the defense alarms go off. Someone has invaded the base. Any guesses on who that could be? It's Scarface. I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's Scarface. Unfortunate too, since he's directly blocking access to the shopping district. Being the embodiment of shock play, however, we know that he uses thunder-based attacks, so we equip ourselves with the Thunder Guard and meet up with our intruder. It turns out, Scarface lost a bet with Epsilon, who then dared him to invade Central Tower all alone to try and retrieve the lost Super Force medal they think we have. In the most obvious case of miscommunication, X refuses because he probably thinks Scarface is talking about the puny Super Force medal Botos had accidentally dropped, while Scarface was probably talking about the actual stash of Force medal that was taken by Spider, so the battle ensues.
Show me the extent of your power.
There's not a whole lot to say about this fight, it's not even required for you to win. But if you want to go for the win for a bit of extra XP, stay tuned, because this isn't the first time we'll be fighting him. Upon our defeat, Scarface calls us strong and explains more about the Rebellion's plan. Essentially, he wants the Reploids to evolve and achieve greater heights, but X explains that the way they were going about it could cause a Maverick epidemic. I mean, just take a look of all the atrocities that Wild Django, Silverhorn, and even Dr. Psyche tried to pull, and they were part of the Rebellion army forces too. So Scarface retreats, and we're left in the market square with a bunch of NPCs that were around when Scarface invaded, only to learn that he didn't actually hurt anyone at all. How nice of him. So anyway, at the market, we see the Guardbuster Mark III and Arrowbuster Mark II are both available, which is nice but not necessary, as now we're Turbobuster Gaming. The Force Metal Shop, however, has a couple of much needed upgrades for us. Thunder Resist, minus Metal 20, and Gain Weapon Energy plus 10. We buy about 4 of the Gain Weapon Energy plus 10s and Thunder Resist just in case, and a couple of minus Metal 20s. Gain Weapon Energy plus 10 costs 18 erosion to equip, meaning we can only equip 2 of them at the moment without putting us in the yellow. But plus 45% weapon energy generation per turn is extremely useful. Minus Metal 20 reduces your current erosion by a flat 20, which is much more useful than any of the neutralizers since those reductions are percentage based. This actually allows us to safely equip 3 Gain Weapon Energy plus 10 for a total of plus 55% energy generation per turn without any special setups. With Generator equipped for an extra plus 20% generation, that is an effective plus 75% per turn. So if you're a fan of using action triggers, this is a very powerful setup. After shopping is done, we're informed that Scarface has been tracked down and the Rebellion Army headquarters is finally located at the Grave Ruins base, or the Glacier as Chief R likes to call it. Earlier I said that the Gold Deal Laboratory was my favorite dungeon in the game. This still holds true, but the Grave Ruins base is kind of a close second for me. The first half of the dungeon doesn't contain any random encounters, but instead has a series of fixed encounters in the form of these big red lasers that block your path. In order to proceed to the next room, you have to defeat or run away from the encounter within the red beam of light, and quickly make your way to the newly unlocked doors before the light reaches the floor again. This room is pretty easy, as it's just a single hallway with one beam with low-level prions. But this room here, for example, has 2 that you have to go through. And then there's this room where there are 3, but quickly start respawning the moment the 3rd beam goes down. So you have to be quick in figuring out what's the best route to the door you want to go through. As you progress, the prions start becoming a bit tougher to kill. It's actually very unique and a nice change of pace from the rest of the game. I actually enjoy these rooms for their simplicity, further backed by the fact that these encounters themselves don't feel overbearing or forced. Yeah, if you want to backtrack and come here later, you do have to do some of these rooms again, but that's a small price to pay for no random encounters to my mind. There are also plenty of treasures worth getting, like this unlock limiter, so it's well worth going through these smaller areas as well. Upon reaching the second part of the dungeon, the level A security zone, the random encounters are turned back on, but there are no more beam rooms to go through. There is this big open room called the battlefield where I would assume was originally where you would face Scarface or something, but was probably scrapped. Regardless, you find every build item in the game in this one room, including a build hyper. Using that one and the one I stole from Ferrum would bring my total hyper mode activations to 10 whole turns. Anyways, here's where the dungeon can get kind of annoying. There's this revolving room with 2 terminals. You enter this area from revolver room number 1. There are a total of 8 rooms, and the goal is to get the door you came from to lead to the revolver room number 3. The terminal on the right lowers the room by number 2, while the left terminal raises the room number by 3. Every other room you enter either has some treasure or a combat. This is where we start fighting some new Prion enemies. These Scarface and Epsilon type Prions were first encountered in this run in the Eternal Forest, but make their first appearance proper here in Chapter 9. The Epsilon Prions are the most dangerous of the two due to their chance to insta-kill you. Anyways, after obtaining all the treasures we can, we revolve the rooms back to number 3 and head towards the level S top security zone, the final floor of the dungeon, where we're immediately greeted by a save point and a scripted encounter with 3 Prion S Epsilons. This fight isn't too hard, it's just a bit risky and annoying. It has Giga and Ultra Giga versions of all 3 elements of the game, can leak Wii by reducing your current Wii by 50%, Overload to reduce your weapon energy to 0%, and Codebreaker to instantly kill you. And of course, like all Prions that carry a shield, they have a chance to block some of the damage you do to them. So as long as you don't play with your food, you should be able to defeat them with relative ease. After the fight, you will have to find a way to unlock the door for going forward. So just take the left and right path until you activate these 2 terminals, then begin the setup process because we're about to enter the final gate. Once outside, we find Epsilon sitting on his throne, minding his own business. He gets up and tells us that we're wrong if we think taking the missile's Superforce medal would declaw them, and we just sort of go along with it. We don't know who actually took it, but apparently that's just what we're going with, alright. But I guess him mentioning they have more distracts them enough to not question it. As we're about to shoot him, Scarface intervenes and protects Epsilon. Yep, this is where Scarface actually comes to fight us. He wants to demonstrate his faith to the cause and wants Epsilon to escape to fight another day. Unfortunately for Scarface, this isn't going to happen. But first, it's time to eliminate Scarface once and for all.
I have nothing to say. Fight!
Scarface is slightly stronger here than when you fought him before. He has 42,500 life energy instead of 37,500. Is slightly faster, but also has slightly lower defense. But everything about him is exactly the same. His gimmick allows him to reduce the damage of, and counter, the last damage type that he blocked. Outside of his standard attack, he does have a bunch of thunder-based attacks like Ultra Giga Thunder, Terra Thunder, as well as Plasma Ball that deals shot-based thunder damage to one target with a guaranteed crit chance, Plasma Array that hits the entire party, deals thunder damage, and can inflict bind, and Electro Breaker, another gravity-based attack that deals 20% of the entire party's current hit points, while regaining his own by the same amount, but has a fairly low accuracy. Considering his gimmick of blocking the last damage type he takes, this fight is fairly challenging but not impossible. Similar to the Hippopressor fight from Chapter 1, we need to be able to reliably hit Scarface with shot-based attacks and combat attacks. Luckily, us being X, we're fully equipped to handle this kind of situation. His attacks do hit kind of hard if you aren't using any thunder resistance force medals, but they're not overbearing enough that you have to spam your healing. The main strat for this fight is basically saving up your weapon energy for Charge Collider with X-Fire for combat damage, then cool down to give Scarface the biggest shot type damage you can. Then just sort of wait until your weapon energy fills back up for another Charge Collider and repeat. With one final Charge Collider and 34 turns later, Scarface's tasing days are now over and we get a plus 30 XP boost to boot. This also levels us up, meaning all those turns in hyper mode were never actually used technically. This is important because, once Scarface goes out in a blaze of glory, Epsilon decides that now is the time to make his final stand. Now is the time for us to submit to the almighty power of Epsilon.
Kneel before the mighty Epsilon.
With no time to actually prepare, we finally run into the Great Wall of China of this game. Let me preface this next part by saying that this fight is my absolute favorite fight in the game in normal playthroughs and remains so even here. This is the fight I knew I would have trouble with more than any other fight. This fight I absolutely knew I would need as many gain hypers as I could hoard. With 34,500 life energy, and taking neutral affinities to all damage types, we're going to have to rely on proper skill and execution to get through this battle. From my experience, Epsilon always starts this fight using Meta Crush, which reduces one target's health down to 1. There is no way to prevent this damage, unless you can somehow dodge it maybe? I don't even know if it can be dodged. Power Virus inflicts poison to the entire party, uses Ultra Giga versions of all 3 elements, has Fatal Attack, and can use Nova Impact, which is literally just Megidolon for the SMT fans out there. It even has the same animation, look! And it deals exactly 1029 to 1435 shot damage to the entire party at random? I don't know if this can be reduced or not, though it seems not, since I did have boost shields in some attempts. This fight is as hard as you can imagine. If Epsilon chooses to spam Meta Crush, you're just forced to heal up. And like every gravity mechanic in the game, you really don't want to waste your tank energy going for life gain max. Sticking to life gain 50 is your best option, full stop. You also have to make sure that your hit points aren't in kill range of Nova Impact because, yeah. What makes fighting Epsilon even worse is the fact that he will randomly block all damage you deal that isn't elemental damage from items, meaning that Charge Collider will often do way less damage than you want it to unless you get super lucky. Even so, you'll still want to use it because that's still your most damaging type of attack. I came into this fight knowing full well that I was going to lose at least once, but I was surprised at how well I was holding up for a first attempt. And then it happens. Omega Force. This is where phase 2 of the fight begins as Omega Force puts his Super Force Metal into complete overdrive. This restores all of Epsilon's life energy to full as he now gains a new maximum amount of hit points at 43,500 and a boost to his defensive stats with a very slight lowering of his power. He also now has a gain hyper and build hyper available to steal, but I'm going to be honest with y'all. I didn't even bother. It sucks losing an extra turn of hyper mode, but the amount of compromise I would have to do to make this happen was just not on the table for me. I wanted to focus on beating this phase more than anything. Sadly, you can't really burst him down again because he now has a new gimmick to worry about. Every time it's his turn, Epsilon restores 50% of his current hit points, and if that weren't enough, his barrier that randomly blocks your attacks is now guaranteed to block all incoming damage. The only way to get through this is by weakening his Super Force Metal by barraging him with as many attacks as you can. 20 hits weakens his Super Force Metal a little bit, and then a further 10 hits will nullify the barrier and regeneration completely. And remember, I said 20 hits. It doesn't matter how much damage you deal, you just need to hit that many times. And if that weren't enough, Epsilon's AI does not let up as he now starts spamming Meta Crush and Nova Impact continuously during this phase. If he goes twice in a row at any point in this combat, you better hope his second attack is a Meta Crush no matter what, or the combat just ends. Let me tell you that this fight right here is a full-on adrenaline rush because there's just zero room for error, zero room for mistakes, and zero room for compromise. You need to play this fight perfectly. You need to have the perfect setup, and you need to make sure that you can level up off of Scarface and not use a single tank energy so that you can keep all of your hyper mode activations and have full tank energy at the start of Epsilon's fight. Because if you lose at any point of this fight, you have to start with phase 1 all over again. There is no cutscene to save you this time. I did end up trying different setups after my first attempt. I even went out of my way to get a Gatling Buster Mark II from the Warhead room in the Metal Ore plant that I wasn't able to get first time around, considering Epsilon's second phase relies on number hits rather than dealing raw damage. With Hawkeye making the Gatling Buster hit all shots with perfect accuracy, dealing 8 hits a turn without resorting to Charge Colliders sounded like a perfect solution. But the problem with that is there's no way to boost the overall power of the Gatling Buster. I mentioned this very briefly in the Goldield Laboratory section, but Power Charge only applies to the first shot of the Buster, rather than all of them. And at this point, using Power Charge and Generator to maintain a high weapon energy percentage with the Turbo Buster was the absolute strongest option I had available to me. So the Gatling Buster strat ended up being a no-go. I really needed to focus on defeating Epsilon fast. There is no taking it slow for this fight unless you really want to use up all your resources before the second phase even starts. Eventually I went with the Turbo Buster, Generator, and Super Absorber for my setup. Then 3 gain weapon energy plus 10s and a minus metal 20 for rapid fire weapon energy regeneration to ensure I get as many hits with Charge Collider as I possibly can, which is 12 hits at 100% energy. I didn't go with Thunder Resist because it would only be relevant to Scarface's fight. and I really couldn't afford to spare resources on Scarface of all people. We needed to prepare for phase 2 and reliably get there. This time, we took down Scarface in 16 turns. That's pretty solid for a boss fight in solo mode. We level up and once again face the big man himself. Even as prepared as I was, even with over 5,000 hit points in X-Fire, this fight continues to rock my balls. And trust me, I did not make the same mistake I made with Botos. This isn't an instance where I overthought myself and made the fight harder than it needed to be. I knew what had to be done. I knew that the only way that I could win is by sitting in X-Fire mode for as much of the fight as I possibly could and throw out as much damage as humanly possible. All of the gain hypers I had saved up are required here. There's just no way you'll be able to do this fight without them, because there's just way too much damage being thrown out there to sustain yourself long enough to reach phase 2 and deal the 30 total hits that you need to turn off Epsilon's Super Force Medal. This fight forces you to use every bit of knowledge that you have about this game and cranks it up to 100. There's also a huge luck factor to consider. Epsilon taking 2 turns in a row is a potential death sentence that you have to be prepared to accept. There are turns where you have to rely on Epsilon using Meta Crush instead of going straight for the kill. This entire fight, you are at Epsilon's mercy. Understand that when I made the joke about Epsilon being the embodiment of power play at the beginning, I did so for a reason. In this fight, Epsilon has all the power. Your life is in his hands. One small mistake, one wrong use of items, and you're done. Fighting Epsilon solo is to me what fighting your own master would feel like as an apprentice. Every bit of knowledge you have at your disposal is tested to the extreme. I can't even think of any actual jokes for this fight because this fight is no joke. You just have to hope and pray that Epsilon fucks up enough times that he can just let you do what you need to, and even then, your resources are continuously stretched thin. Honestly, this is where hindsight would have really kicked my ass, because remember all those gain hypers I had been using in the Eternal Forest? Imagine if I had them all here. I would not be nearly as worried as I was when fighting them here. But as you can tell, that didn't actually matter, even though I had more than enough gain hypers here. My biggest worry was actually running out of tank energy. I had a total of 700% at the start of this fight, and it was draining fast. 145%, 112%, 92%, then 59%, 39%, and then finally 6%. All my tank energy was depleted, my health dwindling every turn. I threw another charge collider, but it wasn't enough. Then I get hit with Meta Crush, 1 hit point left. Thanks to my gain weapon energy plus 10s that I had, and the boost from the hyper mode, I had 68% weapon energy left for one more action trigger. I had nothing left but to hope and pray that I dealt enough damage, because if I didn't win this very turn, Epsilon takes 2 turns, and most likely kills me. And with 1 health, 68% weapon energy and a dream, we charge 1 final action trigger. And...
Incredible.
After 71 turns, Epsilon goes down and we gain a 10% XP boost, as I stared into the longest victory screen known to man. Because I actually had to get up and walk away for a moment to recollect myself. This was the fight that I was dreading most of all, and it went down almost exactly the way I knew it would. But I did it. X defeated Epsilon all on his own like the mad lad he is. And after that, Epsilon makes the very fair point that power will keep his ideas alive, and obtaining all that power was the only way anyone of significance would listen. However, that doesn't make up for all the heinous actions he and his cronies pulled throughout the game, so we're forced to put him down Old Yeller style. Red Ep shows up in person as we willingly give him Epsilon's Super Force Medal and tells us to return to the base to await the plane so we can all celebrate at the Waffle House. And with that, Chapter 9 is officially complete. Honestly, if Epsilon was the final boss of the game, that would actually be an okay way to end this run. It put everything I knew to the test, and it was a very fun and great build-up to the ultimate climax of the game. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and we still have one more chapter left. So back to Hunter HQ, we say our goodbyes to everyone, but Marno mentions something that catches our eye. She says she's been doing research and found out that Spider was at a place where they research copy abilities. She chalks it up to Spider wanting to become a shape-changing bounty hunter, similar to how she was talking about taking Axel's chameleon chip to be a shape-shifting thief, which is so in character for her. But I know the truth, and I'm sure most of you have figured it out by now. If not, then sit back, I guess. But before moving on with the plot, there is something I wanted to do first. Other than the usual setting up, I checked in on my deployment boys and got the Melda key for the Melda ore plant. Much like Reflation, this opens up another fight for me to stick my willy into. But unlike Reflation, I wasn't going to be taken for a ride nearly as hard. So we make our way to the Melda ore plant, unlock this here door, and meet Duckbill Mole accompanied by the K-ball on his back. We don't really care about this K-ball since it's literally part of his model, so. And he wants to fight us because he's in charge of protecting his treasure and asks if we've heard of Naguru. Naguru? Naguru D? He's not.
Ready to tangle with Duckbill Mole?
So the fight begins, and there are actually two of these assholes. Each of them has 58,000 life energy, can absorb fire damage, takes neutral damage from thunder, and an extra 50% from water. They have 6 abilities. Mega and Ultra Fire you know by now. Then there's Quake Hammer and Mantle Assault, which do the same thing as Mega and Ultra Fire, but stronger. Kamikaze Drill, which deals combat damage to one target and lowers its armor and shield by 25%, while also ignoring any kind of damage reduction the target might have, such as if they are defending or if you're in X-Fire mode. And once one of the two Duckbill Moles die, the other will use Break Shield to make up for the loss of power. This fight is actually pretty simple. You'll notice that the first thing that happens is one of them uses Ultra Fire on themselves. This not only heals them, but it powers them up, so to speak. Essentially, when they're chilled by the cold, like the game says, they can't use their Mantle Assault or Quake Hammer abilities, so you do want to keep some cold damage on them at all times. I didn't have ice damage on my first attempt, so I did end up eating shit, but not before killing one of them. Eventually, the damage just gets too much, so I had a plan. Come in with the Ice Buster Mark III that becomes available right after clearing Chapter 9, and at least one fire resist. Whatever you do with the rest of your Force Metal slots is up to you, but that's basically what you want to roll with. This attempt goes much easier as a single power charge deals around 4,000 damage per hit. I honestly forgot to equip both power charges because I'm so used to having Turbo Buster around, so if you want the fight to be even easier, equip both of them. Unfortunately, even with a single fire resist Force Metal having all fire damage, they can still do lethal damage, especially if they get 4 turns to do their thing. On the other hand, you can survive 4 turns of bullshit, so take that for what it's worth. They do like to try to use Ultra Fire immediately after you chill them with your Ice Buster, but not all the time. Honestly, the only thing you have to worry about is Kamikaze Drill, since the damage on that increases every time they use it due to the defense lowering it does. However, if you want to clear those stat reductions in a pinch, you can just go into Hyper Mode to cleanse yourself of stat changes and ailments, which I do pretty frequently every time I want to use Charge Collider on these assholes. I even throw in a couple of Ultra Blizzards whenever I don't want to risk using Charge Shot and giving them 4 turns. But once one of them goes down, the other break shields and the fight becomes much more intense as Kamikaze Drill can do upwards of over 2200 damage at this point. Luckily, if you chill Duckbill Mole when he's all by himself, he's pretty likely to use Ultra Fire on himself, healing himself a little bit but also wasting his turn since I can just chill him again. And with one final Charge Collider, his flame is snuffed out as he goes down in... Well, unfortunately, the battle ends like a normal encounter, so I don't know how many turns that took, and I'm not about to count, but we do beat him. This unlocks the Absolute Zero Hyper Mode for Zero. This is such a cool and edgy form for Zero, and acts as his ultimate form. It vaguely reminds me of Base from the original Megaman series, which makes sense given that they were both Dr. Wily's creations, and it's a shame that this form never makes a proper return to the series. Now that distraction's out of the way, it was time to start the point of no return and enter the end game.